Hey, what's up, Arzu? Hello?
Hey, Derek,
Oh, sorry.
can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Give me like 30 seconds, okay?
Yeah.
Hello, it's Katrina.
Hey, Katrina, how's it going?
Good, how are you?
Doing good. Are we waiting for Liz?
Yeah, she said she was gonna join unless, something came up, but I expect
Okay.
her to be on.
Okay, we can give her a minute. I'm waiting. Arzu just stepped away from her desk, so we'll get started in like a
Okay.
minute.
Okay, perfect.
Excuse me.
Derek, can you hear the birds?
Yeah,
Oh my God, they're so loud. They're driving me insane.
that's funny. So Katrina, we can get started, and if she gets late, I can always shoot her over a recording if she can't make it. Just kind of wanted to recap what I learned from our call. Sounds like today me and ours have a pretty clear understanding of like what you're looking to see. It sounds like you're utilizing Yardi Voyager, but not a lot of the tools that some customers are using. So things that you're looking to do today is it's really about like ECUs, like how easy is it for your team, how easy is it for your tenants for like online payments, portals for maintenance, things of that nature. CAM reconciliations, just what it would be like for us to support one of our commercial clients is
Hi
kind of
there.
what. Hey, how you doing, Liz?
I'm good. Sorry, I'm trying to get myself set up here.
Oh, no
There we
worries.
are. That's a large.
So I want to introduce you, Liz. I don't think you've had a chance to meet myself yet. I'm Derek. I had a chance to speak with Katrina. She told me a little bit about what you guys are looking for in a demo. So Arzu and I have put that together. Arzu is the other face and another voice in this call that you probably haven't heard or recognize. And she'll be actually showing the software today and getting into Appfolio and showing you what it would look like the day of life. The agenda that we kind of put together is, what it would look like for one of our commercial customers to run a day in the life in the business, going over things like cam recs, portals. I know with some things that are big were like document storage and things of that nature. Is there anything front of mind for you that you want to make sure we're showing, Liz? I know I haven't had a chance to chat with you yet.
Katrina's probably already briefed you on all the stuff that we're looking for, but the ability to track maintenance hours and work orders, as well as invoicing. I think you mentioned storage for W-9s and certificates of insurance to go, to coincide with those invoices.
Mhm.
I think those are the main things. And then does your system also hold the leases?
Okay. Yeah, that was fun. Yeah, you guys have the same common needs and goals. So we are already prepped to show all those things. What we'll do is we want this to be interactive. So ours is going to pull the screen. You're going to start seeing her show Appfolio, and we're going to go over those kind of areas. Feel free to stop her, ask questions, and let us know your feedback if anything does or doesn't work. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Perfect.
Wonderful. Well, nice to meet you both. Well, Katrina, nice to talk to you again. I suppose we talked last week. But Liz, nice to meet you. Yeah, so just a little background about myself. Both Derek and I have been at the company for 8 years, but I actually came from the services side of the business. So I, for over 6 of those years, worked directly with our customers. So as Derek mentioned, like feel free as we go through, If you have any questions, just stop me. It's not an interruption. So I'm happy to pause and help clarify on anything that you guys have more questions on. Okay.
Okay.
And then I know Katrina hasn't, but Liz, just to confirm, you two haven't seen Appfolio before, correct?
I have not, no.
Okay. So I always like to kind of start at the beginning, give you guys a little bit of like an overlay, if you will. That way it kind of helps set the foundation of like how our system works. You'll see, I mean, we're not trying to reinvent the wheel here, but it is a little bit different than the way maybe you would like navigate through, Yardi today. So kind of the
It's very
first,
different already.
yeah. So I was gonna say the first thing, kind of foremost thing, is that we're not modular based. So what you may have experienced in the past is like you have to tack on like a commercial module because like you have your accounting basis, which is Voyager. And then if you guys use the commercial module, then you need to tack that on, or like Rent Cafe, things like that, which I know you guys are not using Rent Cafe today. Everything that Derek and I are going to show you, everything that you see as we go through is going to be included. If for any reason something isn't and we talk about it, I will absolutely bring it up, but I don't foresee any of that happening. And so given that, it really just gives you more of like a holistic system. And that means then everything's really real time, it's live, and that left hand's always really going to be talking to the right hand because we're not trying to sync different modules and pieces together to talk to one another. In addition to that, I mean, we've from day one been cloud-based and primarily mobile. I mean, our entire system's completely mobile. I'll actually show you later on, especially around maintenance, what it looks like on the phone. But if I shrink down the screen, it doesn't matter what size, computer, tablet, smartphone, your staff will be able to have, their normal access to whatever it is that you allow them to from any device. And that's also going to translate over to your tenants. And if you, want to give certain vendors, if you ever use third-party vendors, like more mobile tools, it's going to translate that way as well. So really anyone that interacts with your business from an Appfolio standpoint will also have a very seamless mobile experience. Now, of course, Derek and I want to show you what the system has to offer from its entirety, but just keep in mind, you guys can customize your roles, permissions based on what each member, should have access to see, do, all of that. I want to make sure you guys get the full kind of robustness of the system, but if someone is solely on maintenance, of course, maybe they don't have access to some of the day-to-day things. So just kind of keep that in mind as we go through.
Okay.
Now, what we're looking at right now is the main dashboard. Essentially, this is the landing page where anyone, right, when you guys would log in, this is where you would land. It's customizable. What I mean by that is like Katrina, Liz, you each may have different priorities of what is more important for you to see. So, I mean, I can right off the bat see things like delinquencies, maintenance, where we have our commercial tenants moving in. We can keep track of like move outs and, portal adoption. We'll get into the AP side of things, but like if you guys have invoice approvals, like those things, and you can, like I mentioned, customize. So it sounds like, Liz, for you, maybe those approvals are more important. You want to have that higher at the top, and that's like the first thing you want to see when you log in or anytime you want to come to the dashboard. In addition to that, kind of going to the permission standpoint, like you can make custom groupings of properties, of ways of aggregating data. So although I'm going to have both residential and commercial in here because Derek and I talk to everybody, you could like separate things by manager or, and be able to aggregate that not only from a functionality standpoint, but from your reporting standpoint as well. You don't have to like toggle and move to this property in order to only work out of that property. It's going to be fluid, but then from a visual aspect of like financials, reporting, things like that, you can very seamlessly, customize what you want to kind of decipher out, which we'll get into later.
Will there be the ability, is there an ability to have, I just lost my words, sorry, different levels of permission, I guess. So for maintenance, for example, they don't need the invoicing, they don't need the leasing. I want it to be very user friendly for them.
And that's what I was saying. Yeah, that's what I was kind of mentioning. Like, I'm going to show you everything,
Okay.
but know that you have the flexibility to determine those roles and what
Sure.
level of access you want them to have.
Awesome.
It's
Okay.
very granular, so you can get really specific with it as well.
Perfect.
Ooh, sorry, my tea was just hot and it burned my tongue off.
And Katrina, we'll also show you kind of how we took it a step further for like our maintenance portal and for the your maintenance staff, and how we kind of made a version for them that's a little bit more, easier to use and whatnot.
Yeah. The last thing I kind of want to show you, and this ties into ease of use, which, from our conversation last week with Katrina, is like something I think you guys are really striving for, is the search bar. Now, there's a method to my madness of why I'm bringing up the search bar, but I can, of course, do things like search a tenant, right? That's no problem. But right from searching a tenant or a unit or a property, like I can see things like exactly what their real-time balance is. So if I get a phone call and they're like, did you get my payment? What's my balance? You can, without having to go and pull up a ledger, look here, click there, I can actually just search their name, their unit, and it will pull that up for me without me having to navigate anywhere. If someone says, did you get my work order? I could click into the work orders right from the search bar and it would take me to any of the work orders they have, which they don't have any. Fantastic.
Yeah.
We'll get into this too later, but we have communication built in. What that means is we can tie your existing email, right? So you can email out of AppFolio and it would be tied to your normal email address, but all that.
And that'll work with Outlook.
Yeah, so that would be your login email. So when you send it, it would come from that email, right? Or you could have it go from do not reply, but we'll track all that communication. And if they reply back, the two ways tracked as well. Same thing with texting, except you don't have to text from your personal number. We would give you guys local numbers that are designated to your account. So all of the text messages would come from there. You can text individually, like one person. You can text any of the phone numbers at a given space. Like if you have 3 contacts for, maybe it's like Starbucks and you have 3
That
minutes.
might be helpful for the maintenance technicians because we don't want them giving out their personal number.
Totally. I mean, I wouldn't want people to have my personal number and then call me at all hours. And then you can actually text at the building level as well. So if water is going to be shut off, we need to notify everybody. You can do that with one text, but it will actually send out individuals. So you're not in like the worst group text you've ever been in. And then again, that it's two-way and all of their replies you can get push notifications on your phone and it's all tracked on their tenant records. So you always have that visibility into their historical conversations.
I've honestly never thought of that option. And I think that's a great option.
Yeah.
Because the texting is, I feel like that's the main form of communication, even over email for a lot of people right now.
Personally, I mean, obviously not my work email, but like my personal, I check that like once a day, maybe twice, and like usually not on the weekends. So exactly. It's like we're seeing a huge method of communication there. Transaction dollar amounts, invoice numbers, check numbers, all that searchable. You can even get really granular. Like I can search phone numbers and it'll pull up whomever it's associated with. Even things like license plate numbers, if someone's like parked illegally and you want to see, is that any of our tenants? So just being able to functionality, reports, just information, be able to search that. Any kind of thoughts, questions, feels, anything right off the bat?
No.
Okay.
Love the search bar.
Good. All right. So what Liz had talked to Katrina about was the fact that you guys typically with commercial, we find everyone's doing, whether it's the legal team that's generating the leases, all sorts of stuff, it's always being done outside. That would stay the same way. So whenever you do have it and you're ready to like move them into the system, you can very easily go to the space that is at, and you can, move. I don't have it. I already have an existing tenant, but I would be able to move them in. That's where you could establish their lease terms, what their late fee structure is, their recurring charges, if there's tiers, all sorts of things like that. And then once their tenant page has actually been established and you've saved that information, you guys had mentioned wanting to store their leases, right? And so we have unlimited storage. Every page in AppFolio is going to have what I'm about to show you. So mind your eyes as I scroll really quickly. But whether it is a transaction, it's a vendor, it's a tenant, a property, a unit, everything has this attachments block. So you can just drag and drop, whatever the file is, and you can rename, you can create folders. And then if you wanted to, you can even then share that with the tenants. That will share directly to their portal, which we can get into in just a few minutes, but I can share it. I can send them a notification if I wanted to as well. And then they would have that in their portal. So you don't even have to give them like a hard copy if you don't want to. They could always find it and pull it out.
That's excellent. Then that's even a step further than what I was referring to. When I said storing leases, I meant abstracting, like a place for the lease to be with the rent and all that, but that's an even better benefit.
Yeah. Same thing as like kind of texting and emailing that can be done at the building level. You can upload documents at the building level. Like, let's say you want to send out a flyer or something, and you can share it with all of the commercial tenants at the entire, building at all the spaces at one time. So you don't have to go to each kind of page and then share individually unless it is unique to each of them. Katrina, is that what you were looking for too? I think you're on mute. Don't worry.
I'm sorry, my dogs were barking earlier. Yes, that's exactly what I was looking for. Thank you.
Perfect. Perfect. And kind of going back to those texts, right? You can always see any of the emails. So I could see all the two-way here. I don't think I have any text with this tenant, but I would have the same thing with the text, and then all of it's downloadable. So you can always export that information out if you need to.
So it keeps that as a paper trail as well. That's
exactly
great.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. So we kind of talked about setting up their original, like what their rent is and things like that. But I wanted to talk about CAM because that's also a monthly charge that we want to help automate. So I want to kind of pause and go there real quick before we kind of go into like online payments and things like that. Is that okay? Does that sound good? Cool.
Yeah, I think that's great.
Wonderful. So we do support CAM. I'll kind of start at the beginning, if we will. So every one of your buildings, you can kind of set up what we call the GL account groups. So how you want to bucket maybe the different CAM items, if you do have them like consolidated into their own kind of themes, if you will, like I have my maintenance items all together, which these are my expenses, and then my chargeback GL. And then I've kind of lumped all my taxes and insurance together. Again, the expenses, and then what the chargeback GL would be. At that point, kind of once I've established that, and I can still use those for the next year. So like if I'm going into 2023, I can go ahead and, set that up, and I can import everything over from previous years. So you don't have to kind of set this up from scratch every single time. But once you kind of created your groupings, we want to establish what the property estimates are going to be for each of those expenses. Now, one thing to mention is we also have budgeting. It's fully built into the platform. So you can actually import what you've budgeted for the year for each of those expenses. So again, you don't have to manually go in and duplicate the same information you've put in from your budget. We can pull that in. Now, of course, you have the free, autonomy to be able to do that if you want to, have anything different, but we can kind of help streamline and automate that.
You say, oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
When you say import from a budget, is that a budget platform that you have within here, or would that be something we could import from, say, an Excel document?
Both. So you have the freedom to either just fully through the system actually do that, or you can export the template and it be in CSV like an Excel, and then you can import it back.
Got it. That's fabulous.
Yeah, I know I'm kind of jumping around, but some cool
You're
stuff.
great.
Like
yeah.
You can fill
That's
in
great.
with the prior years to help automate some of that. Then you can update by percentages or dollar amounts by certain GLs. So there's a lot of also automational tasks that you can do within the budget, but that's where this would come from. Okay, so once you've established the property estimates, right, then we want to establish what the tenant's like allocations are, right? Based on what you've specified in their lease. We know everyone's a little bit different. And so what we're going to do is that's where you kind of have your allocations. So what is their pro rata share essentially for those different areas? I can see here, maybe for this tenant, we agreed that they'll utilize like just a base year for taxes and insurance. So we can support that. You can also set yearly limits, and then as well as any sort of gross ups, if that is a part of any sort of leases that you have. Ultimately, once that's really set, you're kind of done. What's going to happen is it's going to give you a nice, clear, estimated like sheet that's going to tell you based on what we've estimated for the property and what the tenant's allocation is. What are we estimating both their annual cost, their monthly cost, and cost per year per square foot? And then it's going to tell you what those recurring charges should be. So you can actually right from here, add it to their tenant page. So you don't have to then go and create it manually elsewhere. You can just really kind of push a button and it'll post to their tenant page. So every month with their normal rent and anything else, these will also automatically post as well. And then how often, I think Katrina said you guys do your cams annually for the most part.
Yes, we do.
Okay. So let's say it's that time of year, we can go into our summary. If for any reason you have ones that you do twice a year, you can change your date range. But ultimately what this is going to do is automate your CAM reconciliation. So it's going to tell you, right, what was the total actual expenses? How much did we charge from what we estimated based on the budget or whatever we did? Did we offer any adjustments in the interim? And then what's their CAM balance? And then we can get a breakdown here. So for their maintenance, I overcharge them by about $2,400. And for tax and insurance for $250, I can issue the credit right from here. I don't have to go again, navigate elsewhere in order to do that. And then to kind of really supplement all of this, we have quite a number of different reports that will be able to do that. So you can get like a tenant's estimate, a summary, if this is something you want to then share outwardly with them, and then just a basis of like CAM expense and charges and a property summary overall. How does that compare to how it's being done today?
Even compare, but it doesn't compare.
In a good
Right.
way?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, definitely.
A lot more, it's a lot cleaner and it's a lot more user friendly.
Gotcha. Well, I'm glad. I will say that you'd be surprised how often Derek and I hear people that they're still doing their CAM in Excel. I think that's like super common. So if we can help bring that in and automate some of it, I'm glad to hear it, because that's really like kind of our goal, right? You'll hear me and him kind of say automate, streamline, make things more efficient, because that's from day one really where we kind of have driven our business and product development as well. Wonderful. I did have, actually, no, let's go here. So this is great, right? We have our tenant, right? We've established what their CAM monthly charges are, their normal rent. So how can they pay, right? I mean, you guys are collecting paper checks today, or remind me kind of what you guys, how you're collecting that.
We have both paper checks and automatic bank deposits.
Okay. And the bank deposits though are just directly to the bank, then you have to enter it into Yardi, right? Okay. I'm just taking notes. Okay. So, right, you can easily enter in the paper checks. That's probably going to be the same process, but let's kind of start with what does it look like? Actually, this is not, there we go. So what does it look like for your tenants? Oh, did I? So again, this is fully mobile for them. So they would be able to have an app on their phone. They can pull this up anytime. but really this becomes their one-stop shop for everything. So going back to, if you share documents with them, that's going to live here in that shared documents. You can see there was that item. If I had renamed it, it would be like lease, right? They can download it if they want to themselves. This is where they'd also be able to make payments. So we want to make it really simple, help them self-service as well. So they have a static version of their ledger, but then they can set up an auto payment or come in monthly. It's really up to them, but they'll always have a granular breakdown of what their outstanding charges are. So it won't just be a total and then they have to guess. They can kind of see what that makeup is. And really, their payment options are pretty straightforward. So they can pay with a debit or credit card. If they choose to pay with the credit card, they have a 2.99% transaction fee. It's passed on to them. And then if they pay with e-check, we actually waive the cost. So there is no cost for them to pay with ACH. Now for you, regardless of how they pay, it's actually completely free to you. So there is no cost for you to allow them to pay online at all. So, and it sounds like they're all, for the most part, paying via ACH or paper check, which is really the same thing. So if you guys can get them to do this, which we have payments coaching, it's free, especially for people that haven't historically accepted online payments. It's a great tool. And actually our customer base, which is, I mean, we have over 17,000 customers. It's like 6-point-something million units. We have 72% adoption of online payments for our entire. So, and I think you can see it attributes to the fact that like, we want to offer them a free method because there's such a value where you guys don't have to process all those checks in your office. But it's going to be really instantaneous. So once they submit their payment, their record of their receipt is posted to their ledger immediately. You guys don't have to enter anything in or post anything. And then we will process the funds and deposit it into the respective property's bank account. We do batch deposits per day per bank account. So it'll match your bank statement. So when you go to reconcile, it'll tie out the same way, make it easy. There was something I was going to say and now I don't remember, but, oh, and how it applies, you guys can set up your application process. What I mean by that is if there's a certain order that you want things to apply in, that's something you guys can set up on the back end. So the system will know how to apply both the manual entered in payments as well as the online payments the way you want.
Real quick, one thing I think I talked about when I talked to you guys earlier, because we have so many different entities and ownership groups, we have a lot of different bank accounts, and I just want to confirm that that is doable with this.
Exactly. So exactly. So we're property based. So what that means is, and it's very similar to Yardi in the sense that everything ties back to the property. So each property can work out of its own bank account. They could be working out of the same bank account. The system's going to know where the funds belong because of the tenant, which means which unit, which means which property the funds will go into. So there's no way that like, if Derek here is at, Office Plaza, that the funds could go into a completely different bank account because Office Plaza is only associated with, our Wells Fargo operating, whatever we want to call it.
Okay, that's perfect. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's no limit and we don't charge you to like underwrite the bank accounts. So we can do all that. Do you think your tenants would be open to this? Can you see them using the portal?
I have a lot of old doctors as my tenants, and yeah, they probably wouldn't, but I do think a lot of the office tenants would, especially, as they get younger, I guess. I do think people are leaning that way. So I think it's great to have the option for sure.
Totally. Well, if for those ones that are still coming in manually, I'm going to kind of switch back real quick for your view. You still have the ability to enter in those tenant receipts. So you could just type in who it came from or the unit. It'll pull up all their outstanding charges, and then you could still enter it in and then make the, show how you deposited at their bank level. So pretty straightforward there. I would assume in the commercial space, we don't hear too much about money orders. So does those come up for you guys at all? No, okay. And then we can automate late fees, right? Based on their lease. So when you move them in, that's when, right, you establish what their late fee setup is. So whether, Derek's on, late considered on the 4th, and Katrina, you're on the 5th, and Liz, you're on the 6th, the system will still respect that and charge them based on their own criteria, their own lease information. So if you want to automate it, you can. Otherwise, if you want more controls, you can do that manually, but you can also do it in bulk. So you don't have to do individually. Totally up to you. Any questions or concerns or anything around kind of the AR side of things? No? Okay.
No, pretty straightforward.
Perfect. All right. Well, let's talk about then maintenance real quick. So again, this is fully mobile. We want to make it really easy for them. So they can come in here, they can see closed, like past maintenance requests. They would be able to see any open ones. But this is where they can really essentially put in what their issue is, right? Like maybe there's a water leak, like I can't type today. So they can put
So
it.
this is assuming the tenants are going to put in their own maintenance requests.
If that's something you guys want. And I know, again, because you guys don't really have a rent cafe today, it's all being funneled like phone calls and emails, things like that, correct?
I'm sorry, say that one more time.
I said, because you guys you don't using like rent cafe or anything, it's mainly coming in via emails and phone calls, right?
Correct. Yes, correct. And then we're adding the work orders ourselves.
So would it be helpful? Do you want me to show you how they can submit it? Then okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Perfect. So they can come in here. You guys can have your own instructions. So if you want like after hours or emergencies, call this number. You guys can have your own maintenance banners as well. But given that this is mobile, what's really cool is they can actually take a photo of the issue when they're submitting it to help your maintenance team when they go in to actually do the job. So I think I have an image here. And then they can say whether, right, they have permission to enter. Great. Now, the next step, I want to preface it by saying it's completely optional. So I always have it enabled to show people, but this is something that you can definitely not have enabled. And you'll kind of see because people either love it or they don't want it, which is you can open it up. This is just to help with preferred times. It's not setting them in to a set schedule, but it helps your team with scheduling out the work. So, I can say tomorrow, either from 8 to 2 or like Friday from 8 works the best. Again, helps kind of with the front end lifting, but you can see this may open up a can of worms. So it's just, your tenants better than anybody on whether this is something you want to kind of open up. And again, once it's submitted, that's immediately created in your system. Anyone on your end, whether it's maintenance or the manager or yourselves that wants to be notified when a new maintenance request is submitted, anyone on your team can get notified. And then the tenants here will be able to see that. They can see the status change as it changes on your end based on what your staff does. So that can help kind of alleviate some questions on, did you receive it? Is it scheduled? Kind of where are things?
Can you tell me a little more about that part of it? I've used a system in the past where the maintenance guy, once he sees the work order, he acknowledges it, and then that tells me that I know he has seen it. Is it the same?
Sure, you can definitely do that. So I'm going to shift gears. Let's go into what it looks like for your team. So I'm going to go back in. So we're not a tenant anymore. And what your team would see, and I'm going to pull it up on my phone as well. I'm going to search here. There we go. So what your team can do, so there's different statuses. Some are auto triggered, right? Like if you say that it's scheduled, then it'll change to scheduled. But let's say you want to know when your team has eyes on it. they can actually mark it as waiting. You know, reviewed work order, working to schedule. I mean, they could put whatever they want if they want to. They can update the resident as well on that, meaning like we've received it, looks good. They don't have to, but then it'll change the status to waiting. So that could be one way, Katrina, to help you know whether they've seen it or not.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So let's kind of take a look here. So if we start at the beginning, the first thing that, right, your maintenance staff or anyone would be able to see is any sort of property notes, any sort of warranties around the property or the unit that they should be aware of. So you can store maintenance notes at the building and unit level. Then they're also going to see the description the tenant provided, as well as any photos they uploaded themselves. So they'll be able, all that is automatically brought over. And then if you did have that scheduling tool open, you could see what their kind of availability is, again, to help with the scheduling. Now, at this point, what kind of happens, I guess, once you guys enter it into Yardi, how does your maintenance staff know? And then how does it get dispatched?
Right now, they're getting a text that's generated, I believe, by Yardi.
Okay.
Is that accurate, Katrina?
And then are they able to like see the information on their phone, or do they have to like, okay. So same thing. So whoever's going to sign it out can come in here. If it's a bigger issue and you need a third-party vendor, you can still tie it to your vendors, but then you can assign it in-house, right? So this will pull up from your user list. I'll assign it to our friend Mike here. He's going to own this. And then once I save it, he can get a notification on his phone, like a push notification through the app, that a work order has been assigned to him.
So this is if you're adding the work order.
This is either way. So whether meaning your team is adding the work order or the tenant has added it, if you've created the work order yourself, you would just come in here and you'd be putting all the details in, right? And then you'd assign it out. If the tenant submitted it, that's where you would just assign who's going to own that. And there's actually bulk tasks as well. So if there's certain techs that are responsible for certain buildings, I could filter by that and then, like maybe
The
select.
only time I view that being an issue, so that I think that's a great idea, because we do have certain techs that are assigned to particular buildings, and they should always get work orders for those buildings, with the one exception being on call. If it's after hours over a weekend, then it may need to go to a different tech. So how easy is it to navigate that?
Right. So I guess everything will be unassigned when it comes in, whether a tenant submitted it or not. So you have the autonomy to schedule it out to whomever it should go to. So if it is after hours and, Derek's on call, anything that's new that comes in, you could then go ahead and just like bulk assign then to Derek, or go in individually if it's only urgent items, right? The dashboard as well will tell you maintenance, like what's in what status. So if someone's checking regularly over the weekend or in the morning, they can see, oh, we have 2 new, then they could just click into the new. And then all this would be kind of, like I said, you can kind of see like what's new and what's not. So you don't have to have like all the other noise of everything else that's already been scheduled. I could just kind of narrow it down and go from there.
Is there will we get an email if a work order is added, or do we need to physically go in here and see if any have been put in, say, over the weekend?
No, that's part of the settings. So anyone who wants to get notified can get an email notification that a new work order has been submitted. So you guys can set that up.
I keep thinking of specific situations and how they will play out.
Yeah. Well, no, I think it's good. I like that you're thinking about because you're thinking about how can this work for you? And that's what we want to kind of show you, is like, how would this work for you? And I think the takeaway, or one of the things, is that you're not like fit into a mold that this is the only way you can do it. It's more of like, how do we make the system work for us? Because there are so many ways that it can be configured for your business. Okay, so why don't I show you what it looks like once it's been assigned to a tech? How does that sound? I'm gonna change my screen. Okay, so this is my actual phone. So if I'm a tech, right, I would actually be able to come here and see like what's in progress, what I've completed. So I'd be able to track all of those things. But when I actually click into one of the work orders I'm assigned, we want to make it really simple. So going to something you said, Liz, earlier around maintenance and being able to communicate is important. They can call, and then if they text or email through here, it's going to do the same functionality, right? It's not going to go through their personal phone. It'll go through Appfolio. All that's tracked on the work order. So you always have that visibility. They're going to be able to see the tenant's availability. So if they're the ones scheduling it, they can kind of see what works well. They can see those descriptions, any sort of maintenance notes for the property, any photos the tenant provided. And then we want to make it as simple as possible for them when they're actually doing the work. So first thing is they can track their hours. So when did we start? Let's say we started at 8. We just started right at 8 because that's when our call started. And then maybe we just ended. Great. So it wasn't even a full hour. So I can submit those hours. Next thing I can do is I can take any sort of notes. So I can, confirm whether I fixed it. And then I can actually add a photo, take it live, or if it's already on my phone, I can like pull it from my photo library. And then do you guys keep any sort of like inventory on hand? I think I asked Katrina this and it was like, not really, but maybe.
Yeah, I don't think we do, but we should. We should definitely.
Well,
I think starting with the van, the vans do have particular parts in them, but.
Gotcha. Well, we have inventory management. It's built in, again, not an extra service. It's all included. So they can say which location they're checking a part out of, if it's stored at different locations, and then what the part is. So, maybe we replaced 2 faucet heads, whatever it is. That will actually talk back to the inventory piece. So if you had 100, now it shows you have 98. And then last but not least, I guess if they make any purchases, they can add their receipt and the amount, but then they can mark the job as done. Once they mark the job as done, your team on like a coordinator, whoever, if they want to get notified, can get notified. And then you guys still have eyes to review it before you close out the work order.
Quick question about them being able to text or call with it not showing their actual phone number.
Well, the call will, because we're not like a phone system.
Gotcha. Okay. So the text.
Correct.
Will the tenant understand, like if the tenant thinks that's their number and they try to text them, 2 days later or something, will they still get that text?
It depends. I mean, you'll be able to see all that. So there's a whole messages center that you can always see and you can get notified like when texts come in. Also, if the tenants ever try to call that phone number, it'll redirect them to like your company phone number or the property number if you want that to. So we can always reroute it that way as well.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah. And then I'm going to mark this as done real quick so I can show you what that looks like. And so then on my end, I think it was 512 was our work order number. We'll see the status has changed again, right? It's marked as work completed. And the tenant would see that in their portal as well. So they would see that status changed. They would see, anything that you guys want to, if you want to notify the tenant of anything, you can do that off the work order and directly to their portal. But then you guys would be able to really review, make sure everything looks good. You have your whole actions log, right? So you can see what they did. Their hours will pull over to the work order. You guys can actually tack on if there's rates that they have. So then the rate would be a part of this. So you could keep track of that for invoicing purposes, as well as the inventory piece. I had a sale price for it. So what are we actually charging back or charging for if we wanted to do that as well? And then any sort of their notes or receipts or images are all attached because again, this has that attachment section as well. So they would be able to, you guys would have that all incorporated there. Can you see your team using something like this?
I think so.
Yeah, I think so. One other question, I'm sorry, I may have missed
Not at
this. I
all.
had
No, no,
called me while we were talking.
you're fine.
When the work order is entered either by the tenant or us, is it assigned automatically to the person assigned to that building, or are you selecting who it's assigned to, or how does that work?
The latter. So it won't auto assign, but there are ways that you can bulk assign. So if it is someone assigned to a building, you can filter for all the new work orders for that building, and then you could bulk assign all those out at once.
Okay, so the tenant's entering one, I'm so sorry.
No,
Where
no,
does
no,
it
don't
go?
apologize. So the tenants entering in one, what was the rest of the question?
Where does it, who gets alert from there? Where does it
So
go from
that's
there?
totally up to you. So
Okay.
each user, meaning yourself, Liz, everyone else on the team, you all have your own settings. And so there's a number of different like notifications that you can have. So whoever wants to get notified, like when a new online request comes in, they can be notified, whether it's via email, and then you could see like quite a number of the maintenance things are over the phone as well.
Okay, so per building, you can change the settings then. Kind of.
What do you mean?
Okay, maybe I misunderstood. So, when you went to the top there with the name, with your name,
Mhm.
so the settings are set there on how you want to be notified. Is it per user, I guess? Not per
per
building,
user.
per user. Sorry,
Per-
okay, per
yeah.
user, not per building. Okay, I got it now. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. It's a lot. So that's what I'm saying. Feel free to ask questions. We're covering a lot. So I want to make sure you know, you're getting all the answers you need. I'm happy to go over anything. Mentioned, right, there's inventory. You guys can track your fixed assets. If you're doing any inspections, we have mobile inspections as well. So you can create your own kind of checklist, and they can be out in the field going through the inspection, adding photos. It can all be done from their phone, tablet, all that good stuff. Now, from the maintenance side of things with invoicing, if you're okay, if we move to AP, there's two ways really, but right, you could do it right off of the invoice. I'm sorry, the work order. So if I go to create the bill, obviously if it was done in-house, right, it's going to be to us. But Liz, this is where I kind of said, if you had a rate per maintenance tech, which it can be unique to each tech and unique based on GL. So if they have certain rates for plumbing versus electrical, and I have one rate, I get paid more than Derek does, which is great. Like you can set that up individually. And then all of any sort of the pricing for inventory would pull over. And then of course you can add any of your own line items as needed. So I don't know, we're gonna say maybe this was for repair and their hourly rate is like $35 an hour. And then maybe we want to do just a normal $150. I don't know, we'll call it whatever it is. So you can also attach any of the images to the invoice as well. So if AP needs to review and they want to see like the receipt of a purchase or a pit photo of the issue, you guys can include those. And then you can even charge back the tenant if it goes against their lease and it's something they're responsible for. So you can do that right from the work order as well. So that's kind of creating invoices off the work order. Now, how are you guys? Let's kind of go into AP. Like, tell me a little bit about like what your AP process is. Like you get an invoice. How are you getting the invoices?
We're coding them by hand right now. So I want to see how your system receives and encodes.
And then do you have an approval flow, or is it just one person that's owning all of this?
There is somewhat of an approval flow. I think if the invoices are going to be approved in here, we want the ability for a particular person to approve them.
Perfect. Okay. So most of the time, Derek and I hear people are getting their invoices either, 50-50, like some are emailed, some are mailed through the mail, like snail mail. That's totally fine. At whatever point people are entering it in, this is essentially should look very familiar, right? Like who is the invoice from? What is the amount, invoice number, and then you can code it to the property. You can tie it to the unit. You can then code it, meaning which GLs, and then you can add as many line items. So if you need to take $1,000 and it's parts, repair, labor, whatever, you could break it out. Or if it's a landscaping bill for 5 properties, you could break that out, right?
That'd be my question. Yeah.
Now, this is pretty standard. This is, I would say, 10 out of 10 how people are doing it, unless I should say 9.9 out of 10 times how people are doing it. Every once in a while, there are people that pay a lot of money for like a third party to own this. However, we have a free option that helps automate a lot of the manual legwork or manual data
Awesome.
entry. So it's called Smart Bill Entry. This is kind of a great example of how we release functions and tools. So we actually do releases every week. It's something that you can see in like the what's new whenever you want to log in. And Smart Bill Entry is a great example of something that all of our customers have access to. We thoughtfully release things on the back end. It's not meant to disrupt. It doesn't break the system. It doesn't require you to upgrade to a different version in order to have the functionality. Our customers that have been using AppFolio from like 2009 are using exactly what you're looking at right now. So everyone has access to things like this. So what Smart Bill Entry is ultimately it uses AI and machine learning to help automate the manual data entry of the invoice process. And if I kind of take a step back, about 4+ years ago, we saw the industry, and when I mean industry, like tech, moving towards AI. And we thought, what not a better process to use something like this than invoice processing? Because I'm sure we can agree it's like one of the most volume heavy and manual processes there are. So how it works is we would give you a like DCM specific AppFolio email address. So anyone that's emailing or anyone that's open to emailing their invoices, you could have them email it directly to that email address. It's not going to create an invoice in your system. You still have the checks and balances before any of that's done. It just helps with getting it into the system, meaning the actual invoice copy. Any that are paper mailed, your team can scan and upload them. At least the one way we can help with the scanning is you don't have to scan and upload one invoice at a time. If you have like a stack of 20, you can scan and upload that entire file. We can help with splitting out that PDF into 20 invoices. So a little help with the scanning process. But ultimately what happens is whether they're emailed in or your team's scanning them, they're going to sit here in this pending queue. And that's why I was saying, like, nothing's been posted. I can't run a report on these. Like, these don't exist yet. So if we take a look, we can see we have our carpet cleaning invoice. So this is really where my first level of checks and balances starts. And what Smart Bill Entry does is it actually, for lack of a better term, scans on the back end and reads the invoice, and then will autofill with 99% certainty any of the information it can capture. So I haven't entered anything in, my hands are up here, but it was able to capture from my list of vendors who the vendor was on the invoice. It captured the dollar amount, as well as the invoice number, pulled that. And then I can set things like the default GL for vendors so that that will always be auto-populated for anytime an invoice for that vendor is made. And then this one, right, happens to have like the property in there. Now, let's say something wasn't on the invoice, or let's say it didn't with certainty know whether it was correct or not. It's not going to guess. And that's where the second layer of the tool comes in, which is machine learning. So let's say I add in the invoice number myself. Anytime you change or add information through this, it's looking to see where did you pull that from the original invoice. So basically the more and more you use it, the smarter and smarter it becomes. And it looks to see, can I pull that information on new invoices in the future? You still have the flexibility of adding multiple line items to code it to multiple GLs or properties. It's all the same functionality as if you guys would manually enter it in. But in this instance, I was able to bring my manual data entry down by like 85%. I just had to put in the GL because I didn't have that defaulted. So from my services days, and I worked with people of your guys' size up to like 3, 4, 5,000 units. This was saving them a minute to a minute and a half just on the data entry per invoice. So, I mean, we could do quick math, like how many invoices in a week do you guys typically get?
A lot.
A lot. That's usually the
Yeah,
answer.
this would be very helpful.
Yeah. So let's say we save it. I can move on to the next ones. You know, I can skip if I want to, but this is really where the rest of your approval flow could kick off. So you can either specify individuals or users, but then this would then go like, I could have this be, you know, Derek, and the next approver would be Derek. You could approve, you could reject line items if needed. And then once it's fully approved, then you could go ahead and initiate payment. You guys can print paper checks for free. We also support paying via ACH or bill pay. It's $1 per quote unquote check out. So those are optional. It's just pay as you use. There's no cost if you don't use it.
And Katrina, I know I told you that we would not go over the hour, because I know that, and we do have a hard stop. So I wanted to just do like a 5-minute like time check, and just kind of see what your overall thoughts were, and kind of what we should do from here. If you think we need to schedule some more time to answer any more questions, that'd be fine. If we need to bring anyone else in, that would be great. Just kind of want to open the floor up to what you think would be the next best step.
Okay, real quick, I had one quick question about the AP stuff.
Yeah.
On the bill pay, are you able to lump, if we have a lot of buildings using one vendor and a lot of invoices for one vendor, can you lump one payment, lump a bunch of invoices into one payment on a check? For
As long as
multiple different buildings. Does that make
yeah,
sense?
as long as those buildings are tied to the same bank account, absolutely, right? Obviously. So if you have Tiger carpet cleaning here and they have 5 invoices for 5 different properties, but it's all coming out of the same bank, that can go on one check. So it'd be $1.
Okay, well, thank you for that. And then as far as next steps, I think that Liz and I need to, probably the two of us need to discuss further with each other, and then we need to kind of go to our CFO and COO and just kind of explain what we've seen, because we've gone through a couple other demos.
Okay.
Liz, do you have any other questions right now that you think we need answers for before we do that?
No, only how pricing works. So that's something that if we're going to move forward with, you know, asking for a price, we can
Yeah,
prepare for. Is it
really
user
straightforward.
or-
It's per lease. It's $1.50 per lease per unit a month.
Okay.
And that number would fluctuate depending on if, I know we've been operating off that you guys have 1,000 leases. It would just be 1,000 times $1.50 a month. And if that number was to go up or down, it would, you know, it'd be a revolving, it would change depending on what was active in the system.
So every time we would add a lease, it would add an extra $1.50.
Or if any time you were to like sell a property or, you know, not manage a property, then it would remove that as well.
I would assume that's automatic. If a lease expires, it comes out of the system. That's just auto generates what our cost is that month.
It's not like it's more of if you're actively managing the property. Like, let's say if you're managing a property and it's like vacant for a few months, that will still be charged. It's just the amount of active units that you guys manage, not the amount of active leases. We just
Got it. Okay, that makes a lot more sense. So per door.
Exactly, per door. And that number can fluctuate depending if it's like, industrial space or whatnot, and, or office space, things can change, but we will just kind of work through that as they all happen.
Is that saying that there are different charges if it's industrial versus?
Nope, it's all
commercial?
$1.50, all $1.50 for every type of commercial property you may work.
Perfect.
And then there's a one-time implementation and lifetime support fee of $2 per unit, and that's upfront. So for a 1,000-unit customer, it's usually about a $2,000, as we call it, an onboarding fee, and that helps with the training, the support, lifetime support, and all of us pulling data for you from your current software into AppFolio. And that we don't have there's no other fees that you're going to pay down the road as like an annual fee. This covers the lifetime support fee. So there's no support charges you'd be charged down the road as well. And everything that we showed is included. There was no additional charge. Nothing we showed was additional charge that we showed today.
A is one of your biggest clients or customers that use this platform.
I can't give you their name because that's private information, but I mean, we have people that have 15,000+ units using us. If that helps.
If it's something down the road where you want to chat with someone that uses us, be more than happy to broker that as well for you.
Okay, Liz, anything else right now?
Sorry.
Anything else right now you think we
Oh.
need to?
Sorry, you faded out there. No, I think that answers all my questions for the moment.
I'm just curious, Katrina, how did we kind of stack up? I know you said you saw Skyline like in other softwares. How have we stacked up so far from like our commercial product to theirs and other softwares you've seen?
Yeah, Liz and I both saw Skyline. I think this looks much cleaner. I think it seems much more user friendly, in my
I
opinion.
would agree.
I like the portal aspect of it. I don't remember, which I guess probably says a lot. I don't remember if Skyline had a portal or if we saw the portal for the tenants. I don't remember that part of it. So I like that aspect of it. Yeah.
Well, we have to jump on another meeting. I'll follow up with the email. I'll put the recording of this call there. I'll put pricing information, Liz, on there so you guys have it all in one spot. And that might be a good place for you to share information if needed to your CFO or whoever else needs to see it. Okay.
Wonderful.
Great. Thank you guys so much.
Yep. And Katrina, I'll
Thank
just put a
you.
note. I'll just maybe follow up with you like this time next week and just see how everything went. And then if there's anything I could support you with.
Sounds perfect.
All right. Have a good
you.
one. Bye-bye.
Ladies.
Bye.